Hi, it's Dwyer. It's January 30th, 2025. GamblersAdvisory.com, a free site. BettingAngle.us, a free site. Remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. Now, let me just say, folks, the light heavyweight division is loaded. You have two high-profile fights that are about to take place, right? Unbeaten Arthur Beterbiev versus once beaten Dmitry Bivol. Unbeaten David Benavidez against unbeaten David Morrell. But what I want people to understand is that light heavyweight is actually loaded. You have another huge fight coming up. Joshua Buatsi against Callum Smith. Right? What happens when they get deep in the pocket? Is Callum Smith going to be raking Buatsi's body, or is Buatsi going to be turning him in the pocket and landing crisp body shots and counters? Well, let me name another fight. Don't overlook this fight. This fight has two guys on my sleeper list. Let's discuss a sleeper. A sleeper is a guy who might have lost in the past, might not be a fan favorite, might not be a press favorite. But you know that if the guy brings his A game, Buster Douglas, for example, he can beat anyone. He has a shot. He has certain gifts. He has a certain talent that the public is overlooking. Let's talk about Willie Hutchinson against Zach Parker. Let me just say this. Willie Hutchinson coming off a loss against Joshua Buatsi, right? Went the distance in the fight. Did get knocked down twice. I know the public doesn't think of him this way, but I'm just telling you from this seat. Willie Hutchinson is offensively blessed. This is the guy who lulls you in, then suddenly starts throwing a combination. You notice the combination is pinpoint. You're noticing that he's not throwing pity-pat punches. This is not Joe Calzaghe. He's throwing a combination with power shots. You notice the guy just has an innate sense of balance. You notice the guy can hurt anyone when he starts unloading. Here's his downside. Here's why he's not on the short list, pound for pound, of fighters in the world. It's because Hutchinson is defensively sloppy. Right? This is the guy who is beating Lenny Clark. He's dominating the fight. Clark is clearly outclassed, can't handle Hutchinson's offense. Then Clark is able to land one clean shot. And Hutchinson, who does not have a great chin, was not the same. Was able to get stopped in that fight. Against Buatsi, folks, he gets knocked down twice. Understand, both times you knew he was hurt. This is not the Terrence Crawford or Joshua Buatsi guy with the poker face who doesn't look hurt. Crawford, in a fight against Mean Machine, was able to con the ref into believing that he slipped and that there wasn't a knockdown when it was clearly a knockdown, right? Buatsi badly hurt against Hutchinson, on the verge of going down, but Buatsi has that poker face, wasn't staggering, was just stood up, stayed there, convinced people that he wasn't that badly hurt, right? In boxing, as you can imagine, after a fight, this is a testosterone-filled sport. No one's going to say, yeah, I was on the verge of going down. Yeah, he had me in big trouble, right? No one ever says that right after a fight. Instead, of course, they say, hey, he buzzed me a bit, but I was good. Right? No one says, I looked up, I wasn't sure who I was fighting. Right? So just understand Hutchinson is offensively blessed. But the fighter I'm taking in this fight, and this is the dangerous part of the net, folks. He's a plus 210 underdog, is Zach Parker. Right? Let me just say, Parker, young phenom. People looked at him, they saw the athleticism. He's clearly the better athlete in this fight. Right? Quick hands, quick counters, crisp. He was on the verge of fighting Canelo. He then fights John Ryder. Well, this is a boxing story. He breaks his hand during the fight. Has to quit on his stool. Ryder then ends up with the Canelo fight. Right? Ryder is the person who ends up on the world stage. That's the only fight that Zach Parker has lost. Let me go one step further here. Zach Parker has a PR problem. Right? Life's unfair. I look at Zach Parker and I think, wow, this guy's one of the better athletes in boxing. Right? I see the guy's targeted punching power. He has a better than 70% KO ratio. And I think, okay, the young phenom who was on the way up, who then stumbled against John Parker, if you want to call it that, right, is still there. But that's not the way the British press sees it. Right? The British press is enamored of Buatsi. The British press is enamored of others at light heavy. Right? This is the guy who might be a great fighter, who the public is ignoring. Certainly, the people betting are ignoring him. That's why you're getting a plus 210. This is a 12-round fight, folks. Not a 10-round fight. It's a 12-round fight. Right? Between a guy who's offensively blessed and a guy who's the superior athlete with better defense, but who doesn't have the top-end offensive skills of his opponent. The bet I'm recommending, and this is only for speculators, you know who you are. Right? The bet I'm recommending is the plus 210 underdog Zach Parker simply to win, hedged with the fight not going the distance prop. You're getting that at better than even money. That's a plus 118. If either hits, you make, if it's the Parker side of the play, a pretty good profit. If Hutchinson gets a stoppage that prevents the fight from going the distance, you get your money back and then some beer money. Right? But I need for folks to understand the risk involved. If the fight goes the distance, you only win if the plus 210 underdog, Zach Parker, is awarded the decision. If the favorite, Hutchinson, wins the fight by decision, you lose it all. Right? This fight's going to be high octane. This fight is going to showcase some guys who can punch. As I said, Hutchinson's offensively blessed. If he lands the front end of a power punch combination, Zach Parker's going to be in big trouble. Parker, of course, has never been stopped. He's been knocked down a couple fights ago, but he's never been stopped apart from the Ryder fight where he had to retire on a stool. Right? Understand, too, Hutchinson's cagey, even with suspect defense. He went the distance against Joshua Buatsi. Got knocked down twice. Got up. Went the distance. So this is a high-risk play. But the way I see it, these two guys should be evenly matched. You know, you tell me plus 210 on Zach Parker, and I'm saying, okay, great. I'm taking that side of the bet. That's before I even hear whether he's fighting Callum Smith, Buatsi, Bivol, Beterbiev. I know this guy is talented. The public doesn't know it. I'm not waiting on the public. If I did, I wouldn't get any significant odds. Right? Zach Parker's talented, folks. Plus 210, simply to win. Right? Now, Hutchinson's interesting. The problem I have with Hutchinson is when you're fighting a athlete with quick hands, quick twitch, that's who Zach Parker is. If you're as lackadaisical as Hutchinson is on defense, all Parker needs is a crack in the door. Right? If Hutchinson falls asleep at the wheel, even momentarily, and he does that multiple times against Buatsi, right? Zach Parker has the power to end the show. Now, what Zach Parker is lacking is lateral movement, right? He is a guy who, because he's quick twitch, because he's fast reaction, right? Because he, can throw feints that destabilize opponents. He hasn't developed the part of his game where he lifts his feet and forces you to come find him. His game is to be on the lip of the pocket, feinting, hoping you move, hoping you throw a lazy punch. Then he comes in and he's surgical. Right? I have his last fight against the guy who beat John Ryder, believe it or not. Right? Jack Arnfield or some name like that. Right? It's in my favorites folder right now. You're going to see that Parker is so crisp with the knockdowns that Arnfield is talking to his corner. Someone in the corner might have threatened to throw in the towel. He convinces his corner not to throw in the towel. He was convinced he could continue in the fight. Right? If you look at the replay, you're going to see he's caught clean. He drops like a sack of potatoes. The referee lets the fight continue. So Parker then, of course, once he has you hurt, he's going to finish you. Again, the KO ratio is over 70%. So he comes over, he's surgical. Drops him a second time. The ref really helped out that opponent guy by calling the fight. Because you understood with Parker's hand speed and power and precision, had that fight continued, his 36-year-old opponent could have been badly hurt. Right? So here he is against mid-20-something Willie Hutchinson. Right? And he's not going to be moving away from Hutchinson that much. He knows, if he looks at film, that Hutchinson has defensive lapses. I think this fight's combustible. I think anything can happen. You're good. As long as Zach Parker wins the fight, you're good. As long as anybody wins the fight and the fight doesn't go the distance, you lose it all. If the fight goes 12 rounds and the big favorite, Willie Hutchinson, wins the fight. Those are my thoughts. Let me hear yours. I hope you leave them in the comment section of this YouTube video. Thanks for stopping by.